begin to break down. We can begin to understand about it, so we can begin to solve our problems. You know, a lot of people, anybody ever under stress? You ever feel like you have a little stress and worry? Okay. I want you to think about this for just a second. What do you stress about? You stress about your problems, right? Okay, your problems. It's the things that you worry about that create your stress. Now, I want you to imagine for just a moment that you have 3 gauges on you right here, okay? You've got one that is stress, another one here in the middle that's worry, and another gauge over here that is problems. That is problems. Right? These are like pressure gauges. You know, if you cook, sometimes you'll have a pressure cooker, and it's going to have a thing up here that's going to tell you how much pressure's under. Or if you drive a car, a lot of times the older cars would have a gauge that would tell you the exact temperature that something was at. Okay? Or tell you the exact oil pressure that something was at. So I want you to picture these 3 gauges, and they're plugged into your life here. And these 3 gauges actually go up to 100 pounds. Okay? 100 pounds of stress, 100 pounds of worry, 100 pounds of problem. Now, they're supposed to run about 35, 40 pounds of pressure because you're supposed to have a little bit of this in your life. So, but you look at this gauge over here. How high is your stress gauge? How high is yours?
About 90.
About 90? Okay. How high is yours?
60.
60. Well, that's good. That's better. How high is yours, Bob? 35. 35. All right. Good for you. Good for you. Sometimes our stress gauge is at 35. Sometimes it's at 60. Sometimes it's at 90. Has anybody ever had their stress gauge actually pegged? Where it was, the needle was actually buried over there. You couldn't even find it. You don't even know what it was because the stress was so high. All right. Now, let's take a look at that stress in our life. And let's begin to understand that this gauge here that's in the middle is, what did we call it? Our worry gauge, right? Our worry gauge. Now, what are we stressed about? We're stressed about the things that we are worried about, right? So in reality, we don't have to do anything about the stress. We don't have to get the stress under control. We don't even have to think about the stress. All we really need to do is get in control is the one thing that we are worried about. This is a participation class, y'all, Toastmasters, so make it nice and loud, okay? The one thing that we are what? Worried about. The thing that we are worried about. And so this gauge is over here. It's pegged. If this gauge is over at 90 pounds, 95 pounds, 100 pounds, then it's literally throwing this stress gauge out of control. But the cool thing is we don't have to do anything about the stuff we're worried about. We have this other gauge over here, and it's called our problems. That's right, our problems. So what are we worried about? What are we worried about? Our what? Our problems. That's the only thing that we worry about, right? That's the only thing we worry about is the problems that we got. And so we realize that we don't have to do anything with our worry. We don't have to do anything with our stress because as long as we take care of worry, stress will go right on down. And as long as we take care of problems, worry will go right on down. So all we have to do is address our problems. We have to address our problems. Now, I'm 57 years old at this particular point, and I have one set of problems at 57. But guess what? When I was 47, I had another set of what? Problems. Now, when I was 37, I had another set of what? Problems. Okay? When I'm 67, I'm going to have a set of problems. So we don't really, our problems is something that we define something as a problem because we choose to label it as a problem, and in reality it's just a situation that we're going through. The gold die is designed as a tool to help us begin to deal with our problems, or begin to take one issue at a time, or what seems to be impossible, that impossible thing that you're facing, and begin to logically walk it through step by step by step by step, by giving you a systematic approach to thinking. Just a systematic approach that you can take every single issue that you face and you can run it through your 7-sided gold die. Because you want to, if you have a problem, the first thing you got to do is commit to do your what? You got to commit to do your best at resolving it. And then you're going to have to do what? You're going to have to focus on it. You're going to have to then begin to make sure that you see both sides. Now, y'all may not believe this, but sometimes the person who's caused a lot of stress in my life is the person that I create the most stress in her life, okay? And that's my wife. You know, I have a tendency to create an enormous amount of stress in her life, right? And part of the problem is that I need to begin to see things from Her point of view. Dale Carnegie told us try to see things from the other person's point of view. If I'm going to take and do my best on solving a problem or my relationship with my wife, I'm going to have to see things from her point of view. Now, you may not believe this, but after being married 30-some years, she has told me the same thing over and over and over and over again. Can you imagine that? And so what I literally have the tendency to do is to stop listening. Stop listening. Can you believe that?
No.
But I can smile at her and I can shake my head. You know, looks like I'm listening real well, but I'm trying to figure out what am I going to say when she finally shuts up. Right? I've already heard what she's had to say 100 times, maybe 1,000 times. The problem is that I've only heard about 95% of what she's had to say. I have been too quick, even lower. Okay, yeah. All right, I'm sorry. Okay, maybe 30% of what she's had to say. All right, okay. Depends on how quickly in our marriage I started tuning her out. Now, I know we don't ever tune our children out, do we? No. I see Nick just shaking his head. Yes. Teenager. That's exactly right. We've got to tune some people out sometime. The challenge is that I would have a tendency to begin to tune her out and not to be a good what? Listener. Not to be a good listener. I wasn't seeing things from her side of the story. Let me tell you about the wisest man that I ever met. I was working in North Carolina, and I was remodeling a house. And the gentleman from next door, he came over and he said to me, Stan, I want you to come over and take a look at my garage. I got some cabinets in there. I'm trying to refinish things. I want you to give me your opinion. So a couple hours later, I go over to his house. We walk into his garage. We begin to have a conversation. And I say whatever it is I'm saying at that particular time, and I finish talking, and it's his turn to speak, right, talk. It's his turn to reply. Tell me something, right? And he does this. It's like he doesn't say anything. There's this moment of dead silence. It's almost creepy. I mean, it's, you know, I'm thinking, is this guy mentally sound here or what? The question wasn't that difficult. It wasn't rocket science. And this went on time again. No matter what it was I said, he just was in dead silence. And it seemed like an eternity. It may have only been 2 seconds or a second or, 3 seconds, whatever period of time, I don't know. It wasn't until years later that I realized what he was doing. He was actually listening to what I was saying, and then he was thinking about what he should say, and then he was opening up his mouth and giving me a reply. And because I failed to do that with my wife, because I failed to do that with that one thing that has a tendency to seem to be a problem, because what literally occurs is that I'm trying to solve the problem. I'm trying to deal with it in the same way that I've always dealt with it in the past. Rather than maintaining this open mind instead of a what? Closed mind. Remember, any one thing, there's what we know, and then there's everything we don't know. There's everything else. And so, if I'm having a conversation with my wife, and we're trying to solve a problem that we've been trying to solve for 30 years, the possibility is that my mind is actually closed rather than being open, because I'm thinking about what it is that I want to say the moment that she that's right, shuts up. As soon as I get a word in it, because I already know. If we want to do the impossible, we have to understand that it's going to require us to have an open mind. It's going to require us to look at every circumstance and situation with an open mind so that we can just take in all that information that we possibly can. Then go to side 3. You're right here in the middle. I want you to take and I want you to cover up the other two sides, and I want you to see yourself. You're here in the middle. What literally occurs is now that you have an open mind, you want to begin to talk to the person on your right. You want to begin to see who that person is that you need to talk to. There's safety in a multitude of counselors. So in reality, if we want to do our absolute best on any one thing, we're going to have to talk to other people. We're going to have to begin now to seek outside advice, to seek counsel, to determine what it is that I don't know. But that person is going to be gone before long, and who's going to be left? You, and you alone. But there's going to be somebody over here on your left that you can begin to talk to, and you can begin to get advice from. And literally that person's going to be gone, and who's going to be left? You. You. Because you have to make the decision about what's going to go on. And literally, as you begin to have an open mind, and you begin to seek counsel about any particular thing, then your knowledge is going to begin to do what? It's going to begin to expand. It's going to begin to expand and grow, expand and grow, and expand and grow. And what used to seem to be impossible is no longer what? It's no longer impossible, or it may still be impossible, but you're beginning to get a little light. You're beginning to get a little revelation, a little bit of understanding. You're beginning to see the things that you hadn't seen before, so that you can begin to approach it. Now, this not only has